satisfying measures due to legal pressure and lawmakers going after the company. That set a dangerous precedent for the video game industry, and we saw a lot of the gaming industry really back away from explicit content because of that reason. And even Rockstar Games just didn't even want to touch anything close to that. Now, there's obviously been some other instances in which we saw console makers really going after certain explicit types of content within their experiences. There's been a divide between Japan and, say, American culture in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. We've seen that on full display with some of the controversies over the recent years. There's also been Blizzard Entertainment, all about their values and how they're player first. They want people speaking out. Well, the Blitzchung controversy really exposed them for who they really were, and how a foreign government really can alter that opinion or that mindset, supposedly. Now, there's been other instances, even just recently, Ready or Not, this is like a SWAT simulator of sort. The controversial censorship patch rolled back by Modder almost instantly. If you're unaware, this SWAT sim Ready or Not, on July 15th, the developer Void Interactive released the free update for the experience. The update added new weapons and missions and fixed a long list of bugs, but it also controversially contained changes to some in-game content. This included covering up suspects as well as toning down body dismemberment caused by gunfire and explosions. These changes were implemented as part of Ready or Not's porting process to Xbox and PlayStation. In a statement posted earlier in the month about the changes, Void Interactive stated that they had only made the changes required by the first-party platform holders, and decided to bring these tweaks to PC to better support crossplay and avoid extra bugs that could occur when maintaining different assets for each version. And despite considerable uproar from fans calling it unnecessary censoring and review bombing the game on Steam, the developers still went through with the update because, yes, they want that precious money from console. And what's even more just bizarre about this entire situation is that this is not the lone censorship issue with this entire situation. There's been a notable update in the fact that the uncensored or not mod that restores the original censored content has been taken down by Nexus Mods, which that platform altogether, I just do not understand the mindset, how they go about the decision making with what's acceptable and what's not. Nexus Mod has been notable for these issues over the years, and that's why there's been many individuals calling for a more suitable modding center, but so far that has not emerged. But we're really not talking about this specific instance of censorship, because this is some of the stuff that we've seen over the years, and it's definitely a problem. We've talked extensively about it here on the channel, and even this is another big one that we talked about a couple of years ago, in which Sony, again, the divide from Japan versus American culture. Devil May Cry's PS4 version was weirdly censored, but this is only something that happened in the West. There's been changes. They've kind of backed off on this a little bit. But we're actually talking about this. This is a secret enemy that really is emerging in the video game industry and just entertainment in general, which is not being talked about at all, but it has finally awoken a lot of people based on some new rules coming down from Steam, which really shows how powerless the platform is to this quiet enemy. This is coming from Automation Media, but Steam rules updated to prohibit content that violates rules set forth by payment processors and banks. Valve's rules regarding what developers shouldn't publish on Steam have a new clause regarding standards set forth by payment processors. And Valve is very much admitting right here a very scary prospect, and the fact that payment processors can usurp whatever their rules and wishes are. This story, again coming from Automation Media, Valve has updated its rules regarding content that developers aren't allowed to publish on Steam. The rules and guidelines section of Steamworks documentation now has an extra clause, and it suggests that publishers are required to comply with rules and standards set forth by various third-party companies or parties involved in processing electronic payments. The rule seems to predominantly relate to adult content. And this is actually the specific rule on their Steamworks. You have many of the other stuff. Again, they don't want certain types of content, defamatory statements, certain types of content. These are just basic rules. But then you get to the new one, number 15. This is the new one. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular, certain kinds of adult-only content. Now, the problem with this is the fact that where does this stop, and how much power do these payment processors actually have? And what we've been seeing in recent months and years is that these processors really can assert their will on developers or just entertainment companies in general. And this very much is an attack on artistic expression. You got to understand, Valve already has 14 or so and many other rules that outline what's acceptable and what's not. There's also lawmakers that have created laws that outline what's acceptable and what's not, even on platforms like this. But what we're seeing is that MasterCard, Visa, and some of these other, the banking industry is usurping those rules and making their own about what they deem acceptable. And that is a scary prospect for where this could be headed. Because very much so, Steam, Valve, they do not have power here. If they lose their payment processors, it's game over. And they are just, they're not ready for that. They're not going to take this fight on because, again, if that happens, they lose everything. So in their minds, banning a couple of games, that's just what's going to have to be done here. And again, that is just a very scary prospect. Now, this website Automation Media goes on to mention the fact that things like, hate speech, malware, explicit content, depicting real people, any forms of all kinds of stuff. But this new 15th clause suggests that Steam may additionally have to crack down on specific types of adult content in response to the requirements of payment processors and banks. There are currently no specific examples of what this may entail. Now, the problem I have even with this little paragraph right here is it really doesn't put all of this into perspective, because while it is adult content for now, and a lot of you may look at some of this stuff and be like, oh, that's a stupid game, who cares about that? It's the precedent. It's also some of the experiences that have come under fire by some of these third parties that really should get you nervous with where this could be headed and how games could be altered in the future, especially designed when developers do not want to even running close to any of this type of controversy. SteamDB even outlined this. They talked about after this new rule came down, we saw a number of adult content being removed from the website. Steam has added a new rule disallowing games that violate the rules and standards set forth by payment processors and card networks or internet network providers. At the same time, many adult-themed games were removed from the store. And I think a lot of people may view stuff like this and just be like, who cares? These are experiences that probably shouldn't even be on the platform, but that really isn't the point about this whole controversy and where this could be headed. Now, SteamDB said this is possibly related to PayPal because people in certain regions have not been able to use it to pay on Steam for the past 5 days, which again, that pressure exists, and now Steam is having to give in because of this. Now, this goes much further. I think people do not understand that this has been a problem that's been brewing, especially in Japan for a while now, but it's finally reaching outside of Japan and becoming a much wider issue. So this was actually the Nier creator. He went on social media just recently, towards the end of 2024, and he was talking about this. It's a security hole that endangers democracy itself. The Nier creator speaks out against payment processors pressuring Japanese adult content platforms. Drakengard and Nier Automata creator Yoko Taro recently joined in on the discourse surrounding Western credit card payment processors and the pressure they have been exerting on Japanese adult content platforms in the past year. In a post on his personal X account, Taro commented about credit card companies refusing to process payments for legal adult content. Publishing and similar fields have always faced regulations that go beyond the law, but the fact that it is payment processors, which is involved in the entire infrastructure of content distribution, can do such things at its own discretion seems to be dangerous on a whole new level. It implies that by controlling payment processing companies, you can even censor another country's free speech, and that is what's essentially happening here. In a follow-up tweet, Taro goes on to say that I feel like it's not just a matter of censoring adult content or jeopardizing freedom of expression, but rather a security hole that endangers democracy itself. But before we continue, this video is brought to you by